Hello, courageous soul. Welcome, welcome. Today, our teaching is on expectation, the spiritual journey, and how these come together in ego death, right? In the molting, in the shifting when we transform from one way of being into another. And this teaching is based on something that I recently went through, where in my own journey, I had this really big opening of understanding something from a much deeper perspective of interconnectedness, of our not separateness. And what was so fascinating to me was that along in the journey, I had imagined it would be a certain way. Like this was my expectation, that it would feel this way, it would look like this. I would experience it in a particular way. And I had this, I don't know if goal is the right word, but I had put this experience out in front of me. And then this was what I was working towards, right? The idea of this experience. And doing tools, practices, meditations, working on my energy field to get to this place. And then quite unexpectedly, I arrived at this place. And what was so fascinating to me was it was nothing like I expected. It was in that there was a tangible connection and touching, yet the experience of it was not the way that I had imagined that it would be. And inside that place, what I realized is the reason that it wasn't what I expected was because the version of me that had been expecting had died somewhere along the way in the journey. She didn't exist anymore, right? That part of my ego was not here for that experience. And that's like the crux of it, right? Like we are dying in devotion to this place we're working towards. And so the person in me that had created what this was going to look like, she wasn't even there for the final arrival because she had to leave. She was part of my energetic architecture that was connected to old stories, old core wounds, old patterns. And she couldn't experience this new place that I had arrived at because the very process of getting to that place involved her no longer being here. And so I offer this to you, right, on this journey of pretty much self-annihilation, right? If we're really going to get down to the basics of it. Yes, we can sugarcoat it with a lot of things, but if we really are on a spiritual path that is in deep devotion to something bigger, then me, like Sarah, right? You, whoever you are inside of all your names and your costumes and the roles you play and the stories you tell yourself, all of those basically get annihilated. And then what's left underneath is really where the connection is, where the arrival is, where the place is inside you. But all the things that were covering it up had to go. And so part of what we think it's going to be lives inside what we're dismantling, what we are getting rid of, what we are healing, changing, shifting, transforming, right? It all lives inside of the architecture that is there covering up the place that we are searching for, right? On the spiritual path, we really want that deeper relationship with ourselves, with all of life, with our, source, divine, love, God, whatever word is your word, but that place that we all want to reach. The parts of us that keep it from us in the first place, those get to be shed. Those get to be offered to the fire. Those get to be given up, right? Sacrificed in devotion to what is that deeper life underneath. So as you are unraveling, if you hold it in this place of who are you underneath everything, right? What is the part of you that is doing the expecting of what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, the things you tell yourself, right? Like, we can really sacrifice our current level of joy for some perceived version of joy that we are working towards. And probably, right, if I reflect back, there was a part of me that was doing that. I can't be happy until I get to this particular place. And then all of that time that I could have brought joy into my life when I was diving deep, it was like I arrived in this moment to recognize that it had been here all along. I just thought something different was going to happen. I was expecting something different from the path, from the journey. And yet it was so fulfilling, I suppose. It was so, it held me deeply in that moment. And I imagine, right, you have had those moments. And it takes those moments to dismantle what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about the way the world works, how we show up in our lives for this path and what we are willing to do. It really, I have not seen in my life, right? I teach from my experience, but in my life, the way through was in. I had to be willing to own everything of me. And in order to move through it, I couldn't pretend, I couldn't hide, I couldn't cover it up. I couldn't, like I was speaking of joy, there's joy that is like your true positive reflection on things. And then there's manufactured joy, right? Where we tell ourselves that we're happy and we spiritual bypass the deeper work. And what I'm talking about is like, we have to get into that deeper work. We have to be willing to look at anything that is in the way, any expectation, any perceived notion of what we are working towards. And when you can let go of that, there's something else there to see. It hit me so hard. It made me cry. Like I was sitting there working with my field, working with the divine feminine, and the opening happened, and it made me cry because it was so different and so pure and so real. It shattered illusion, right? We live in so much illusion in this world that we have today. The things that we feel are important, the things that we pay attention to, the stories we tell ourselves, what we're caught in, what we're perpetuating, what we're allowing to spin inside ourselves. All of that is the thing that will get you where you want to go. You can't run away from that. You can't pretend it's not there. It is in the diving deep. It is in the learning to relate to that differently that you can then land, right? Land in the place that is truth, that is realization, that is without illusion. And then from that place you can build. From that place you can do something different. But if you're not willing to get to that place, then really you're just building on top of a shaky foundation. This work is about drilling down to get to that place where you can then see a different truth, right? You can see something deeper. You can see something that you weren't aware of before. I know all of you must have had this experience, right? Where you believe something, you think it's a certain way, you do some work around it, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh gosh, I can't even believe that I thought that, or I did that, or I expected that, or right? Because we have expanded your level of awareness. You've expanded your consciousness. And this is the process where we just keep expanding our consciousness through moving through the things that are keeping the consciousness trapped or held or not connected. This is one of the things I experienced in my clients, that consciousness gets disconnected when we have a wound. And when we can go in energetically and we can take out what is connected to the wound, the consciousness comes back together. It sews itself back together, and then memories start to flow, and energy flows, and awareness flows. But as long as that wound is sitting in that space, the consciousness can't connect around that wound. It's just mangled and mashed together. And it's taking that apart that then allows the consciousness to re-sew itself together. And we can feel that flow. We can feel that interconnectedness. We can, one of the things I see is that in those of us that have had traumatic experiences, one of the things that happens is we can't remember. We remember some specific bad, let's say, right, experiences. We have a really hard time remembering the good, and we have a really hard time understanding or being in connection with the flow of the years of our younger life. They can be very distorted. They can be kind of, there's whole periods where we don't remember, and then we'll remember something, but then there's something that seems out of the timeline over here that we remember. This is all because consciousness is supposed to be woven together and flow, and yet it gets broken, and the wounding sits inside of in between it. So as we clean that up, then consciousness flows, and then we can reach these places, right? Like that day when I had that awareness, I removed some old wounding, right? And then as that consciousness came together, and as my field was allowed to reconnect in that place, the awareness came in, the understanding came in. But the part of me that was Sarah, that was still in that wound, she was blocking me having that experience. She was blocking me remembering something deeper, because that's part of our ego. It gets caught in our wounds. But then when we can pull that out, and when we can have a different relationship with that part of us, then we can have these experiences, and we can understand this bigger nature of the universe. So where are you? Where's a wound? Where's something that happened from your past that you have been avoiding, that you think, right, doesn't affect you, yet it does? And where can you be willing to be with that part of yourself so that you can allow these parts, these deeper parts of you to heal, so that you can really be in these bigger ahas of life, and this deeper sensation that is available to us if we are willing to go into the darkness in devotion to the light. I love you.